Hi, my name is Miss K, and today we are going to be doing a lesson talking about loss. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so lost and found are a lesson for third grade. How can loss inspire new beginnings? First, I want us to take a look at this image. What do you notice first? What do you notice? We're going to come back to this, but I want you to take note of the different things that you see in this image. Okay. Yeah, what do you notice? The following, the hands, the colors, like the blues, the sad expression on his face. We're going to keep note of these because we're going to come back to them. So we're going to read a book called Mr. Morris, The Fantastic Flying Books of Mr. Morris. Morris Lesmore loved words. He loved stories. He loved books. His life was a book of his own writing. An orderly page, one orderly page after another. He would open it every morning and write of his joys and sorrows, of all that he knew and everything that he hoped for. But every story has its upsets. One day, the sky darkened and the wind blew, till everything Morris knew was scattered, even the words of his book. He didn't know what to do or which way to go, so he began to wander and wander. What would you do? And what do you do when you've experienced a loss such as Mr. Morris? Loss can be confusing and it can be hard to understand. And in the book, we see Mr. Morris struggling to figure out what to do next after losing something that was very, very important to him. What have you felt when you've experienced loss? What did you lose? And what happens next in our story? Then a happy bit of happenstance came his way. Rather than looking down as had become his habit, Morris Lesmore looked up. Drifting through the sky above him, Morris saw a lovely lady. She was being pulled along by a festive squadron of flying books. The books led him to an extraordinary building where many books apparently nested. Morris slowly walked inside and discovered the most mysterious and inviting room he had ever seen. It was filled with the flustering of countless pages, and Morris could hear the faint chatter of a thousand different stories, as if each book was whispering an invitation to adventure. Then his new friend flew up to him and landed on his arm. It held itself open as if hoping to be read. The room rustled to life. And so Morris's life among the books began. So we're going to re-examine this image. What do we notice? We notice the boy falling, but we also notice the hands that are there to catch him. Through learning about Mr. Morris, we see that grief is hard to understand, but it's also hard to get through alone. When you lose something, you catch more bees with honey. It is easier to find yourself when you've asked for help rather than wander and be alone like Mr. Morris was doing at the beginning of his story. Okay. Who is Salvador Dali? Salvador Dali is a Spanish artist. He dabbled in the arts of painting, sculpting, printmaking, film, and performance art. He was born on May 11th, 1904 in Catalonia, Spain, and he pioneered the surrealism movement. Very silly looking guy. He got a little mustache. So what is surrealism? For this example, I'm going to show you guys the painting by Salvador Dali, The Persistence of Memory. What do we notice about this painting? You see the clocks, that they look like they're melting. You see the ants on top of a stopwatch. These are all things that don't generally exist in real life. Clocks don't melt, they aren't bendy. Ants, I assume, like things that are sweet and organic and not things that are man-made like metal. In this painting, Salvador Dali talks about how time is a constant flow and it's constantly changing. What else do we notice about his work? We see exaggerated limbs, we see made up characters, we see bright colors. These are things that generally do not exist in the real world. I personally have not seen an elephant with this long of a leg. So, big idea. My big idea is that loss doesn't stop time, it changes how we experience it. Key concepts. Artists use loss to fuel new creations. Artists are limited by their own imagination, and artists make art inspired by loss. Excuse me. So step one to our project is we're going to be journaling. For 5 minutes, write in your sketchbook a time you experienced loss in someone or something that helped you overcome that experience. My example is I recently lost my grandmother over the Christmas break. This can be a friend, it can be a family member, like my grandma. It can be your favorite toy, a tooth. Anytime you've experienced loss and you had to figure out a way to get through it and come out on the other side. Uh-oh, okay. Sorry, the slide is not, we are not in the right spot. Step 2, brainstorm. What could you use to represent this experience? Persons, places, things. What colors could you use to bring this idea to life? Think back to Salvador Dali in the clocks. Do you want it to be a literal representation or something more obscure? For me, I chose the flower, a poppy flower. It was my grandmother's favorite flower. And every summer we would go sit outside of grocery stores and we would hand them out to the people in our neighborhood. Step 3, bring that object to life. Like the books in the story about Mr. Morris, think of ways you can bring the object to life. Does it have wings? Can it talk? Can it dance? Can it sing? To end, we're going to talk about Connor Walton. This painting is called It's the End of the World as We Know It. What do we notice about this painting that can represent loss? I noticed that the earth is deflated. I noticed, similar to Salvador Dali, that he has something that keeps time. Now, when we look at the full painting, some other things that more obviously represent loss is someone's head. And if we read the books, all of the titles start with the end. So this assignment, I want you guys to explore something in your life that came to an end and how you moved past it and how you moved forward from that point in your life. I am sorry if I sound a little awkward. Yeah, so this is my lesson for the 3rd grade.